rev up your engines. Today I'm going to show you how you can check if your engine's worn out or not. Over the years, I've had quite a few customers that came to me from another mechanic, had spent a bunch of money on a vehicle, still didn't run right, and so I said, hey, first thing we're going to do is check your engine, because if that's worn out, forget it. You don't go any further, or you got to put another engine in your car. That's where a good compression tester comes in. Basically, car engines are giant air pumps. They suck air in through the air filter, mix it with fuel, and put it inside the engine where the pistons are. Then the spark plugs in the ignition system fire. That creates the power that moves the pistons down using gas. Then once that power of the crank is moving the car, the exhaust valves open. Then that burned air fuel mixture comes out the exhaust, and then exit out the tailpipe. It's all just pumping gas. Now, the more efficiently your engine runs, the more power it has, the better gas mileage it gets. But of course, over time, friction wears parts out inside the engine. And with a good compression tester, you can test to see how worn the inside of the engine is. The more worn it is, the less efficient it's going to be. And of course, eventually it can get worn enough that the car won't even start anymore. It won't even run. Now, technically, it's a relative compression test. You want to test the compression relative to each cylinder, because the absolute accuracy of the gauges and how you're doing it changes a lot. You have to do it consistently, though. You can't check one cylinder one way and one another way. Now, today I'm going to do it the easy way, and it's pretty accurate because a cold engine will often show its problems better than a hot engine. So you make sure the engine is cold, then remove all the spark plugs. Out they all come. And here's the last one. So now when you crank the engine, it's going to crank the same all the time. There won't be any spark plugs in, so the engine won't start. And like I say, I'm doing it on a cold engine because you'll often find a problem on a cold engine easier. And like I said, you can test it lots of ways. You can test it like I am, just with it cranking. You can test it cranking with the throttle open to get more air inside. But it's easy just to be cranking it with your foot not on the throttle, with it just sitting there. So each one will be tested exactly the same. Now, there's also various ways to test it, but this has adapters for each spark plug. In this case, here's the one that matches our spark plug. As you can see, the spark plug is the same as this, so we can put this in just like the old spark plug, using our spark plug socket because it's the same size. Then screwing it into the engine. You want it snug so it's not leaking. Then you just screw the hose in, it goes to the gauge. Sometimes you have to wiggle a little to get them in because it's kind of a weird angle, but after a while, you get it on tight. Then you just get the gauge, and it snaps right on the other end. Then you crank it over. And in this case, it's 190 PSI, which is pretty good for an engine that has 240,000 miles on it. And then, of course, you do the other three. And in this old Toyota engine, hey, it went between 185 and 190 PSI. That's pretty good for an engine with 240,000 miles on it. Now, I generally work by myself, so screwing it in is the best way to do it. But if you've got a helper, you don't even have to do the screwing in. You can just use this that pushes in by hand. Just push it in the hole, then crank it up. Here we go, about 189 PSI. That's even faster. Now, of course, things never wear evenly, so you're always going to have some type of difference between the cylinders. But if you have more than, let's say, 12 to 15% differential, that means that the lower ones are much more worn than the higher ones. And in that case, either the piston rings that seal the pistons going up and down are worn, or the valves that are inside the head are worn and don't seal right. Either way, it's going to be a super expensive repair. You got to take the engine apart and either do a valve job or put new piston rings in. But if you want to find out which one it is, that's a pretty easy test too. All you have to do is put about a teaspoonful of oil in the cylinder, then do a compression test. And if you find that the pressure goes up quite a bit, that means that the piston rings are worn and the oil sealed them a little bit to give you a higher reading. But if the pressure remained low, that's often a sign of the valves are bad and they're not sealing. And if a valve doesn't seal, a little bit of oil isn't going to help, because that's metal on metal, and if the valve's cracked or the head's got a crack in it, the air's still going to go through and make the compression pressure low. So now you know how to check if your engine's actually physically worn out. And since this is Mechanic Monday, I'm giving away one of these Blue Driver compression tester kits. To have a chance to win, just place a clean, non-offensive comment on the YouTube comments below, and the winner will be chosen randomly by computer to be able to figure out if their engine is worn out or not. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.